Hello and welcome back to Buck the Trend podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Steph, and I'm glad we're doing introductions again.
Yep, back for episode 9.
Yes, we are indeed. And full disclosure, this episode might only be 10 minutes long. Do you want to tell them why, Matt?
Yeah, we're both a bit tired today.
I had a threshold run, and we needed to do some bits in Bath. Welcome to our life update. I've got an award ceremony tomorrow. Matt needed to get a dinner jacket, so we were like, we'll go into Bath and we'll go to the Bath Bristol bike path, and in his lunch break Matt can do the run with me because it's a 1k stretch, so that's super fun. It was really hard.
Yeah, I stupidly said I'd join for 10 1Ks, and I can't remember the last time I've done 10 1Ks, but
I can't remember the last time I did 10 1Ks.
But it was a good session, sun was shining and the vibes were high. We had a good time, so but it was hard.
It was really hard, but the thing is, I think I haven't worked that hard running for a long time, and there are those sessions that you look at it and you're like, I mean, so I don't get nervous about training sessions, but I do look at them and I'm like, yeah, I feel like that might be reaching a little bit, but we'll give it a go.
You know which ones are going to be hard.
Yeah, and started off, and my watch, I don't know what's going on, but the GPS was all over the place. And it really rattles you. You're like, I'm running really hard, and my watch is telling me I'm running really slowly. And then it would just ping and catch up. So I'd only know how fast I'd been running with like 100 meters left of each 1K.
Yeah, never let it get in your head. If in doubt, go off effort and RPE.
Yeah. So I did 10 1Ks to feel, and I ran them all too quickly, apart from the one I fell over a tree root.
Your body compass, or whatever you want to call it, usually knows right.
Your metronome, yeah. It'll get it right. But we're a little bit tired. So we did that this afternoon and then came home. Matt, you've not left the sofa apart from now to...
No.
You put pizzas in the oven. We had pizzas for dinner.
Yeah, and chocolate fingers.
Yeah, if you're watching on YouTube...
We've upgraded our biscuit options.
We have got some chocolate fingers because they are packet or nothing. We're both fully agreed on that. If I didn't feel like the shop assistant would have judged me, I probably would have bought us a packet each. But I settled for chocolate fingers and a chocolate bar.
So if you see me sneak a few...
Yeah, they're on Matt's side. I can't reach them. Matt can. Wow. Disaster.
I usually get slightly more anyway, so...
Always. We have a 60-40 rule that often turns to 70-30.
Which
I completely disagree with. I think it should be 50-50.
Some things you can have 50-50.
So yeah, we have no idea how long this is going to last, but there we go. Until one of us falls asleep.
No, we're fine. We've got a few things to discuss today, so should we crack on?
Let's go for it.
So I think we're going to go straight into a question, which I quite enjoyed, and it was along the lines of the do's and don'ts for we're gonna line it with your first Ironman, because we've both done our first Ironman and we've both subsequently done a few since. And we've probably got quite a few do's and don'ts within that period.
Yes, we do. So many.
Hit me with your first... Should we go with the do's or don'ts? Maybe the don'ts. I mean, they overlap, but the don'ts first.
So this question this one's from Zara, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so Zara's one of my old squad mates from rowing, and she's just signed up for Ironman Wales, which, number one, congratulations for getting a slot.
Secondly, why? Why Wales?
Yeah, so much kudos to you picking Wales as your first one. It is such an amazing event, but it is hard.
Yeah.
It's definitely a tough one. But Zara's made of really strong stuff. She's like a fell runner, so she'll be absolutely fine.
So it won't even feel hilly then at all.
No. It'll feel easy. Okay, so we're doing the don'ts first, right? And I think you've got to throw it back, because by the time you get to race day, it is too late for everything.
Yeah.
So if you're like, now is the perfect time to be thinking about it for a September race. Like, that's super awesome. I'd say don't kind of jack up your training volume too much, too quickly. You can get away with it cycling. It's much easier on your joints, so the injury risk is much lower, but you will overload your aerobic system. Running, if you haven't done a lot of running before, it's really easy to run too much. However, equally, with adding in these additional disciplines, you can't just keep running the amount that you were running before.
Yeah, and having coming from a rowing background, not really playing much not playing much impact sport, and when I was growing up, it kind of running is the one where you get the injuries.
Yeah.
Especially as a newcomer, and swimming also in the shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
If you overdo the swimming, you can also strain a lot of your rotator cuff. I think is probably the biggest one.
Yeah, and if anyone's had a rotator cuff injury, it's one of the most painful things because it's a tiny little muscle that exists just on the top of your shoulder, and every time you move your arm, it's like someone's sticking a knife in it.
So I think don't overdo it was your first one, wasn't it?
Yeah, be sensible.
I think moving on from that is also don't overcomplicate it.
Mm.
It's really simple. Like any other sport, it's really simple. If you do the basics right, you're 99% of the way there.
Yeah.
It is as simple as swimming, cycling, and running.
Mm-hmm.
And it is so easy to overthink it and try and throw all these quick fixes and these 1%ers in. But ultimately, if you can nail the swim, bike, and run training, you're pretty much there, right?
Yeah, and I think especially for your first, you will never know how hard an Ironman is until you've done one.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to have all these grand plans about what you want to do. And I'd say especially if you come into it having done a lot of road running before, and you've got your marathon PB and you've got a half marathon PB and a 10K and a 5K, and you're like, oh, I want to run this time off the bike. But you've never been at that point where you're taking your first step of a marathon after having swum 3.8k and cycled 180. Your body does not know what it's like because it's never been there. So you actually have no idea what your capacity is to run off the bike. So it's great to have aims, and it's really important to keep you motivated and push through it. But I guess one of my don'ts is don't stake everything on a time, especially on your first one.
Yeah.
Just crossing that finish line is something that most people on this planet will never do.
One thing I quite like to do when I'm sort of goal setting for an event, and I think I've heard you speak about this before as well, is I quite like to have, so it's like I say, don't have that set goal and that's the be all and end all, because you either make it or you don't, and there's two ways that goes really. I like to sort of see it as like a podium, like gold, silver, bronze.
Yeah.
And you have your gold is like your big stretch goal, and that's like the ultimate, like if I hit that, that is amazing. Then you've got your silver, which is sort of somewhere in between, and then your bronze, which is sort of you should be able to do that on your average day sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then that is like what you'd be happy with.
Yeah.
And that's maybe finishing, for instance.
For sure. And I think finishing always needs space on there, because that is always like, it's a huge testament. Even if you're having your worst day out there, getting yourself across that finish line is a win. And so I've built on that with one of my athletes who's so wonderful, called Chloe. She is also a psychologist. So we spend so much time working through all these things before her races, and we came up with, instead of a 3-step podium, we had the gold, silver, bronze, but we also had platinum. That was like, actually, to achieve that would be the perfect day. So gold wasn't a perfect day. Gold was a great day. Platinum was the perfect day. So it's like, it's above and beyond the podium. It's not really worthy of having a space on it, because having a perfect day is near on impossible. But it is a possibility in a perfect world. So we're going to have it there, and we're going to call it platinum, and it will be utterly brilliant if we get there. And to be honest, I'm pretty sure she actually ended up somewhere between the gold and platinum goals anyway. Yeah. Which is super powerful, because in my previous life, working at EY, I was really fortunate to work with Ryan Jones, who is a former Welsh captain and is actually working through an early dementia diagnosis, and his perspective on life and performance is utterly fascinating, because he's coming at it from a highly successful rugby player that's now facing a shorter life than he thought he was going to live. And he doesn't really, I don't want to say he doesn't like goals, but he says they can actually be limiting.
Yep.
So if you say, this is the fastest I'm going to go, you won't ever beat that. Yeah. Because that's the fastest you ever think you could go. Whereas if you have this like graded approach, yes, you're I guess you're safeguarding yourself against not reaching that goal, but you're also not putting a cap on how well you could go. And something that I guess is another do for me is through training and through preparation for the race, practice problem solving. Because if you think about a normal day with all of the things that go wrong, that big or small, you know, we don't live in a perfect world. Stuff happens. You stub your toe, you smash a bowl, which I do a lot.
We have a lot of that.
You forget your swimming costume, which I did again this week, but remembered 10 minutes later, so it's okay. I did come back and get it. Point being, a normal day, stuff goes wrong. That doesn't go away when you do an Ironman. You're out there. You could be out there for 17 hours. That's a lot of time for something to go wrong. And if you practice problem solving and practice living in that imperfect world through training, in the race, you're going to be able to, one, problem solve, but also reset your goals. So it might be, so for Copenhagen, for example, I went in with a 14-hour aim, and I got off the bike and realised that I was going to be, all being well, I was going to be quicker than that. So I shoved it to 12 hours. Because I was like, well, I don't think I'm going to run a 6-hour marathon. So
Casual, take 2 hours off.
I'm just going to take 2 hours off. And then I crossed the line in 11:18. And granted, it was definitely not perfect. It's like I didn't eat anything all day. It was, apart from on the run, I ate crackers. Oh, honest to God. What was I doing? That's another one in a minute. But I wasn't slowing myself down, thinking that I could only hit 14 hours. Just like constantly on the go, you're playing mind games with yourself, but you're also making sure that you are fully robust and fully resilient in the approach that you're taking to finishing the race.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it's not just that problem solving within the what ifs in the race. That also happens in training and the build up to the race. Obviously, you plan for these scenarios. What if this happens? What if that happens? And you have a plan for that if it was to happen.
Yeah.
So, and it sounds silly, and you kind of do it automatically in your head anyway, but it does really. I mean, if you get a puncture, for instance, what if I get a puncture? If you've changed one in training 10 times, for instance, you know you're going to change it in a couple of minutes. Whereas if you haven't changed one, it might come to race day, and you might even not have. I mean, my first one, I probably didn't have a clue how to change one properly. But if you've practiced it in training, you know when it's going to come, and you can solve it in a couple of minutes rather than half an hour, for instance, or having to wait for support.
And I think that is a huge do. Learn basic bike mechanics and have the tools with you, especially as an age grouper. You want to get across the finish line. The last thing that you want to happen is for a bike mechanical that's fixable to stop you getting across the line. So learn how to change a puncture.
Yep.
Learn how to change it, and that changes depending on tubeless or in a tube, but also learn how to put in a tube in a wheel under a tyre and re-inflate it with gas canisters and or handheld pump. Like, cover all of your bases. Spend time getting to know your bike. So learn where the bits are that might come loose. If you haven't got an integrated cockpit on a road bike, if the handles spin round, do you know how to tighten it? Do you know which bolts might come loose?
Yeah. Even things having spare chain links.
Yeah, definitely take spare chain links, because if you snap a chain, if you've got a chain link, you can fix it. If you haven't got a chain link, nothing you can do about it.
There's usually, in terms of mechanicals, all right, there's completely bike or race ending mechanicals. Completely get that. The carbon frame breaks, for instance, you're not fixing that.
Or you ride into a pothole and smash a wheel.
Yeah, things like that, which you can't fix. But the simple ones, which happen more generally in training, like I say, your chain breaks, that's happened a lot, whether it's through poor maintenance or just a weakness. I don't know.
Weakness plus pothole plus watts, and it just goes.
So that's one. And carrying a spare chain link is a case of, I don't know.
It's probably like 3 grams.
Yeah, less than 10 grams probably.
And it's small. Yeah. And the other thing with inner tubes, make sure that the valve length on the inner tube is the correct length for the wheels that you've got. Yeah,
we've seen that. If you've got deep section wheels and your spare tube
is not a deep section valve, then it ain't going to work.
Or you're going to have to spend a lot of time getting the valve core off. But
you need a tool for that.
Yeah.
Which you probably won't carry. So make sure the valve is the right size for the wheels.
But there's also the point, I think, is before that, is make sure your bike's in good working order. I see a lot of people turn up to these Ironmans and their bike's filthy, it's falling apart in places. Like, just take it to the bike shop if you have to. Get a good service, I don't know, few weeks out from the race, just so you know your bike's in tip-top condition, because that's the last thing you want going wrong, is something out of your control. Well, out of your control to a degree.
Yes, definitely.
So yeah, that's another one. Go on. Have you got any more?
Do buy a race belt.
Yes.
And I guess with that, there's lots of little random things that make your life easier in a triathlon. Things like elastic laces on a pair of trainers.
Yep.
That, okay, it's not mandatory. Like, you can do up a pair of laces when you come off the bike, but your dexterity sometimes goes a bit funny. And if you can just slip on your pair of shoes and then go for a run, and your feet don't mind elastic laces, I actually really prefer them, because my feet swell during an Ironman, and the elastic laces therefore swell with it, or allow the shoe to expand a little bit more. So I find them way comfier over the long distances. And the race belt just means that you can ride with the number on your back, and then you spin it around when you're on the run, and you're running with the number on your on your front, and you don't need to worry about, I've got to undo paper safety pins and redo them onto the front. Yeah. And then I guess don't be afraid to get changed.
Yep.
So like, for example, I have always swum in my tri-suit under my wetsuit, ridden on with my tri-suit on, and then run with my tri-suit on. Apart from my first year in Kona, I put running kit on for the run. And
also you can, in your transition bags, have a spare change just in case.
Just in case.
You might feel the need to. You could even, I'm not saying you would, but you could crash, rip your tri-suit almost, and the last thing you want to do is run a marathon then potentially in it.
Half naked.
So yeah, I think just plan for all occasions. And talking of equipment, I'd quite like to bring up, and this comes back to when you sign up for an Ironman, maybe make a list. There's a huge amount of equipment that you might need, and a lot of it you can beg, borrow, and steal from friends. Pick up on Facebook Marketplace, eBay. There's a lot of things you can pick up cheaper, but make a list from swimming, cycling, running of the equipment you'll need for the Ironman, and you can pick this up online. There's a lot to it, but just tick off the list of the basics, because it's a budget. You're going to need probably a considerable amount of money to purchase all these items, which you might not already have, like a wetsuit. Not everyone has a bike. Not everyone has, but most people have running trainers, for instance. So have a little think about making a list of all the things you might need for a triathlon, and then tick them off one by one, and then use that list then again when it comes to race day. We still do it now. Have a kit list the day before.
I have a packing list that I use. I use it for training camps, I use it for races, and it's a note on my iPhone, and it never changes because it's the same thing every single time. Because
the likelihood is you'll be traveling to a race, unless you get the luxury of being in the country that your race is in, which you're still probably going to have to travel a distance. So yeah, really just have a list. You can lay it out in front of you, take a photo of it so you've got it memorized in your head. And I think that's probably a big do. And don't rely on bike shops having the equipment in the location that you're traveling to. Yeah. Because number one, if there are 3,000 people racing and they all turn up and there are 2 bike shops and they're looking for like gas canisters or inner tubes, like, no, not going to happen. So be fully prepared and to be self-sufficient. And then, by all means, go to the local bike shop if there is something wrong with your bike, but also be aware that they're going to be super busy. Yeah, and it is dependent from race to race, but I would say the Ironman expos are very, very well stocked with all sorts, everything you could basically kit yourself out for an Ironman if you had to from a And expo. People have, when their luggage has gone missing. Yeah, exactly. So I think it is dependent on the race. We've been to some challenge races. We've been to some other unbranded races that are slightly different. I've been to Challenge Roth, and it's probably the best expo there. So it does change from event to event. So don't, like you say, don't plan on it being there. Have the plan there before. Yeah. But you can. Yeah, worst case scenario, but I'd say for your stress levels' sake, travel fully prepared. Yeah. Okay, I want to talk about nutrition. Yeah, I think that's a huge one. And there are so many do's and don'ts within this. So I think let's just have a conversation about it, because we've
probably done like the full extreme
of
everything. So for my first Ironman, context. I did not fuel as a swimmer other than raw jelly before a race, and rowing, we'd literally train off water. We'd be doing 90-minute sessions with absolutely no fuel, eat huge meals around it, but the concept of fueling within a session was super alien. So this is something we have had to learn massively. There are some like basic principles that I follow, and this is me as a female. So I never train fasted. I will always make sure I take on some carbs before a training session and coffee, because I don't exist without coffee. And any session over an hour, I will fuel, whether it's like a carb mix in my bottle or gel or chews from Precision Fuel and Hydration. Like I make sure that I am fueling, and I practice my race protocols in training. There is no need really for age groupers to race solely off gels and carb mix unless that is the best thing for your stomach. But you can still take those principles and practice them in training, but take nutrition seriously, because if you're going to be out there for 17 hours, imagine not eating a meal for 17 hours. I can't exist without 2 hours without eating.
Yeah.
So you but genuinely think about this in terms of a normal day. You're going to have to take on carbs, you're going to have to take on calories, and you're out there exercising for a long time. So I got told before my Ironman, oh, don't worry about eating. I survived off a flapjack. So in my head, I'm going in like, oh, people don't eat during these. So I think I had some Mao-Wows on my bike.
Some what?
The Mao-Wows. The Haribo Mao-Wows.
You say that's so funny.
Well, I don't...
Is it not Mao-Wam?
That's exactly what I just said.
Meow. It's like
Mao-Wam.
a cat.
Meow. And then I got onto the run, and obviously I was bonking. I was exhausted. I was so tired. I was starving hungry because I'd gone for the longest time ever between meals. So I was just taking on flat Coke and salted crackers. So
we didn't really know the concept of gels back then, did we? Really?
No, definitely not. And that is a mistake that I have never made again. So yeah, I think spend time understanding the food that your body likes to take on when you're exercising. I mean, I'm at the point now that on the bike I'll be taking 90 to 100 grams of carbs an hour, and then it drops to probably about 80 on the run. Which is like, it's quite considerable.
I would jump in there and say, obviously there's a lot of people, you'll see it in social media, a lot of the top end of the sport pushing it 120 grams of carbohydrates an hour.
200 if you're Magnus Ditler.
Yeah, plus. For your average age grouper, like myself included, I mean, I'm 100 kilos, so my burn rate is quite high. Probably the effort level we're going at is different to the guys racing for 7.5, 8 hours. They might be, and they're used to it, they're training with it, whereas you don't need to just see what everyone else is doing online and go jump straight to 200 grams an hour, because honestly your gut will probably not handle it.
No, I think 75 is probably like a good place to start, because it's not actually, when you take on 75 grams of carbs an hour, that's like 2 gels. And then if you've got carb mix in your drink, it might even be 1 gel.
Yeah.
Or a flapjack. So look at the carb kind of count within the foods that you know you like to eat when you're training, and then start practicing on the long rides with your run-offs and your long runs. Like, what can I stomach that doesn't make me feel sick?
Yeah, I mean, a gel tends to be between 20 and 40 grams of carbohydrates. So, yeah, if you're thinking you're needing to take, there's quite a few gels.
And then I guess with that is, do spend time thinking about how you're going to carry them.
Yes.
Like there are, so a lot of the TT bikes now have, like, I guess nutrition solutions, or you can purchase nutrition solutions to add on to your frames, and that goes with road bikes as well. There's also nothing wrong with just having bottle cages and bottles, and like I guess even a handlebar bag with some food in it.
Yeah. Or pockets, juicy
really.
pockets.
Or just pop. Yeah, if you've got a jersey on instead of a tri-suit, you can pop them in your pockets.
But even most tri-suits nowadays will have pockets on the back.
Yeah, it just depends how big they are and how easy they are to get out.
Yeah, that's true.
People do tape stuff to their bike frame. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. It's a pain to try and undo tape while you're riding.
Yeah,
to,
a bit of a mess, and you don't want to fall off just because you're trying to pull a gel off your frame.
I think a better option is to have like a bento box on your top tube.
Yep, I
that
agree.
You can stuff through it, things, and they would fit most road bikes would be able to have either a screw-in one on the top tube or one that you can stick down, depending on whether it's flat or round.
And I'd say don't be afraid to have some solid food on the bike, especially.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to the run, that's where you probably want more liquids and gels, just because it's quite hard to chew when you're running. Whereas when you're cycling, it's a lot easier to breathe, chew, I find anyway. And I do really quite like, there's a lot of nutrition companies do bars and chews. I think I
like the Squares marshmallow bars.
Yeah, you could make your own. I mean, a lot of cyclists do. But something with a bit more substance to it, but not too much fibre, I guess, because you don't really want too much fibre. Otherwise, it could be a bit messy come the run. Not speaking from experience, but...
No.
But also, I think when it goes to nutrition as well, it's thinking about what you're having the morning of the race and the evening before as well. Obviously, you've got a carbohydrate load to get your glycogen stores up, but you don't need... You're going to be uncomfortably full.
Yeah, I think it's more... So something that I find, instead of the volume of food that I'm eating, it's the getting rid of food groups. So I have a super sensitive stomach, which is a constant challenge that we're working through, just in terms of like running and when I can run and when I can eat. But it means that I have to be quite aware of what I am eating in those 3 days before the race. And I basically chop out vegetables, which as a vegetarian is absolutely hilarious because it leaves me with one food group that I can eat. Obviously I can eat protein, I can eat tofu, but I do predominantly survive off a diet of pizza and or plain rice and or plain pasta, maybe with a bit of cheese for some fat, in the days leading up to the race. And that works for me, but it doesn't necessarily work for everyone else. So I'd say experiment. So if you've got like a long training weekend or a long training day, maybe like the 2 days out, experiment with what you're eating a little bit and just see if you need to, like if you were to do a long hardish run on a Saturday, could you guarantee your stomach would be fine and your energy levels would be good if you, tweak some things from Thursday onwards, just so that you can practice it? Because I recognise that I'm in a really privileged position that I get to race multiple times in a year and I get to hone this and practice it each time. Whereas if you're doing an Ironman and it's your first one, this is your opportunity to try and practice things.
Yep.
So you can almost create these like race simulation weekends or days where you're doing, it could just be like the Ironman bike distance ride with a little bit of a run off. Not that you need to do that, but if you want to do, or like I'm going to do a 6-hour ride and a run off, you could like practice your nutrition a few days before and definitely on the day that you're doing it. Just so that on race day, you know exactly what's going on.
Yeah. I think as well, whilst we're on nutrition, is hydration as well. I always in an Ironman, you come out the swim, straight on the bike, and it can be quite easy to think you're not sweating because you just come off the water, you're wet. And to just take on the liquids early, I always find, sweat rate, average person, I don't know, let's just call it roughly a litre an hour for exercise. It could be high, it could be a lot higher, it could be double, if not more, could be half that. But generally speaking, so you're having to replace quite a lot of fluids. If you're on the bike for anywhere from 4 to 6, 7 hours potentially, you're having to replace a lot of fluids. And that also, there's potentials for electrolytes within that as well. But I mean, just in terms of, I always think I always finish dehydrated anyway, but I always think, wow, I've drunk a lot, but I'm still dehydrated. So there's definitely one there, I think, as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think the way that I've managed that is I have hydration targets well, it's not hydration, it's fluid intake targets. So I keep things simple because my poor brain can't cope with anything else. So on the bike, it's 1 litre an hour with 100 grams of carbs an hour and also my salt intake. So I've got a sweat rate of about 1,200 milligrams of salt per litre. So I just keep that's why it's a litre of water or a litre of fluids an hour, because I know I need to take on 1,200 milligrams of salt with 100 grams of carbs. So like, I don't think you need to know your numbers quite to that extent, but you do need to be very mindful of like, are you a heavy sweater or not? You will know.
Yeah.
If you, and are you a salty sweater or not? If you finish sessions covered in salt, you're probably a salty sweater. If you finish sessions on the turbo and the floor is wet, you're probably a heavy sweater. So be aware of those things so that you can like deal with a problem before it happens. Okay, I got 2 fun ones. Do let go of every concept of hygiene. Because number one, the pre-race toilets will be utterly vile. So just forget that we're all humans. Just ignore everything that's going on. But also, during the race, wee yourself. It is the most efficient way to go to the toilet. You don't have to stop.
Classic swimmer says that, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah, I wee myself all the time swimming, but I know a lot of people wee themselves on the bike. Weirdly, I haven't needed to yet. I don't know if it's my body just completely shuts down the signs and I don't really notice it, but I'll wee at the end of the swim as I'm like just before coming out into T1, sorry. Then I'm usually all right on the bike, and then I'll wee myself on the run. Because like, I don't want the faff of taking my tri-suit down to go for a wee. Like, that just is a complete waste of energy. So yeah, like, if you're running and you need a wee, just wee. It's so fine. Like, it really is so fine. No one cares. No one notices.
Steph's now not getting a post-race hug after the race anymore.
I've weed myself every single race that I've done. And you know this because I've told you. So it's so fine. But yeah, I'd say it's like, that's really normal. That was something that I didn't know before the race. So I got off the bike in my first Ironman to go for a wee, and there was a spectator in that, and I was like, come on, these are race toilets, like, get out of the way.
But also, you can go to the toilet.
Oh yeah, you can, like, absolutely.
You can keep your dignity.
If you want to go to the toilet, you can go into a cubicle, but it's really normal not to. So don't feel like you're going to be judged.
Because anyone who has, I don't know, been on a run, busting for a wee and tried to carry on running, you know it's not very comfortable. As soon as you go for a wee, just stop in the Portaloo, have a quick wee.
Yeah, stop in the Portaloo or just wee yourself. Like, but do it. Don't hold it.
Yeah, because it's not comfortable.
And also, if you're holding your wee, your heart rate's going to be up, which means that you're burning more calories and you're going to be more tired quicker. So it's actually physiologically you've got to let it out. But Ironman are brilliant at having, so there are toilets at every aid station. So like there are so many. You'll be so fine. If you do want to use a Portaloo, they're everywhere. And if you need to use a Portaloo for other reasons, they are everywhere. So you're very rarely caught short. But if like me, you are confused about how people wee during an Ironman, pros wee themselves. That's it.
Okay.
No time to stop.
Enough toilet talk.
Okay, last one for me. Do enjoy the finish line. They will call you down and you get to ring the first timer bell. I never rang it. I didn't know it was a thing. So I never rang the first timer bell.
I don't know if it was a thing back then, though. I feel like it's quite a recent thing in Ironman.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, maybe I'm going to ring it next time. Ring the first timer bell, get called down the finish chute as an Ironman, and enjoy it. Because you never get another first time, and it still gives me some of the best feelings of anything that I've completed in my whole life. Yeah,
there's a lot of sacrifice and a lot of hard work that goes into completing one. So enjoy it, and like I say, bring your family and friends along. They'll love it. It's a great day to come and support. It's a long day, but it is great fun to come and support your loved ones through an Ironman. You see the highs and lows, and I think just don't be afraid to go out there earlier than you think. The race is usually on a Sunday, sometimes a Saturday. Don't be afraid to get there on the Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, we're usually there Tuesday before a race.
Yeah, enjoy being there because the build up to the race is quite fun. The event village starts to build. The host city kind of gets behind it.
And the earlier you're there, the less stressful it is because
Yeah.
you've got time to figure everything out. Like, you can get out onto the bike course usually, so you can go and ride some of the roads and see what they're like. You can experience some of the run course. Quite often they'll open the swim course up. So you can actually get to race day, and the only thing that you've not done before is put all of the elements together for a big day. But you could have ridden most of the bike course, so you don't have to worry about that. And you could have run most of the run course, you don't have to worry about that. Which massively helps, I think, especially if I think back to when I was turning up to races for the first time and when I was an age grouper, going and doing bits of the course first just took the pressure off.
Yeah, because you might cycle one of the hills on the bike course and think, oh, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Or this is actually a little bit worse than I thought it was going to be, so I need to remember that.
Yeah.
Which is useful to know.
Yeah, so I think there's that as well as just don't get out there on the Friday, your plane's delayed, you're missing, I don't know, or you're flying on the Saturday morning and you're trying to then rack your bike, put it together. It's just too much. It's just so much stress, which isn't necessary. I mean, if you haven't got enough annual leave or anything like that, fair enough. But enjoy, have a bit of a holiday out of it. Is what I would say do. Especially if you're going, most Ironmans, you'll go somewhere nice and sunny, unless you decide to do Ironman Wales. Or Leeds.
Yeah.
But usually, but to be fair, Ironman Wales was lovely when we went a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah, we had like mid-20s. It was amazing.
So yeah, I'm trying to think if I've got any. I'm sure there's loads, but I'm trying to. Nothing's jumping out at me at the moment for any more do's and don'ts.
Maybe we have to do a part 2.
A part 2. I think we've covered quite a lot in that one, to be honest. So yeah, we'll wrap up there. Maybe send us in your do's and don'ts.
Yeah, we can read some out. That'd be fun.
From your first Ironman, or maybe you haven't done an Ironman yet, and I don't know, you want to bounce some ideas off. I would like. We didn't really go over it, but the Ironman season has pretty much started. It has started.
It has very much started.
So this last weekend just gone was Ironman New Zealand. So the first Ironman of the year, I think, of 2025, I believe.
Yeah.
Or at least professional.
Yeah.
Race of the season. So both strong male and female contingent in the professional field there, which was good to see. Another 4 cola slots have gone for the females and knee slots for the male. Notable mentions, it was good to see Joe Skipper back.
Yeah, we love Joe Skipper, and he has had such a hard 12 months just dealing with some kind of like health issues that was going on. And when we were out in Chattanooga, he was racing and he was so wonderful, so much support.
Joe is a fellow British pro. I say fellow, I'm not a pro, but he is also a British professional for many years. Very, very, probably the fastest man on land.
Yeah, he's a very good bike runner.
He had a good swim.
He did have, he really had a really good swim in New Zealand. But swimming is definitely the thing that he says that he needs to work on the most. But he really pulled it out of the bag. Like, it was an amazing race, and I think loads of people are happy to see him back on the podium. Yeah, which is great.
And going back to our do's and don'ts earlier, I noticed Joe dropped a bottle very early into the bike course, stopped, turned around, picked it up.
Yes. If that bottle that you're dropping has your carbs in it, get off your bike and get it. Number one, because of littering, but also you will regret it. Yeah.
So yeah, good to see Joe back on the podium, and he's got his knee slot. Whether he'll take it or not, I think he did. So it'd be good to see him back race at the top. Yeah. And then I suppose it goes into our what the buck of the week.
Yeah.
Moment is the female winner, which was Regan Hollyoak. So yeah, congratulations to her. It was great to see her. She's got another win. I think she's got 4 Ironman wins now in the last
We have been following Regan's career with so much fascination, interest and delight, because last year was her rookie pro year as well. She finished the year as the highest ranked rookie and I was the second highest ranked rookie, which is just so fun. And she raced 70.3 Worlds the year that I won my age group. She's in different age groups to me. So it's been like, other than that race, I don't think we've ever raced each other. I've never met her, but we've lived this year in like parallel, and it's been so refreshing to see someone else turn up and just take the Ironman races by storm. Well, not even just Ironman, just take the racing scene by storm. And she's done a lot of races in Asia and Oceania and has absolutely smashed it.
Yeah, and she seems to be extremely consistent. I mean, she might tell us otherwise, but from looking at her results, she's always up there.
Yes.
She's consistent with across all three disciplines. Like I said, she's very good across all three disciplines. And yeah, like I say, you can't knock wherever the 4 wins are. You can't knock 4 wins.
You certainly cannot. And I'm so excited to see where she goes this year and how she gets on, because
well, you might get your showdown. It's not a showdown.
Yeah, I guess there are rumours that she's going to be in Texas. She's definitely racing Geelong in like 2 weeks, 20 days, 3 weeks, some days. I don't know. It's the 23rd of March, which would be great. And then, rumours are she's going to be out in Texas, which would be really cool.
So, I mean, she could be one for the Pro Series, sort of to be up there if she can string consistent results together.
Yes, for sure.
I mean, she's already got one Ironman in her legs, but maybe that serves her well as an athlete. I don't know. So, good to see how she gets on through the year.
For sure. So, congratulations, Regan. You win nothing, but you are our what the buck moment of the week for your New Zealand win, which is so great.
And then anything else to wrap up? I mean,
so I guess the rest of the female podium is
yes.
Jocelyn McCauley is a fellow Ventum athlete, and she came second.
Yeah,
and
fantastic to see Jocelyn back after tough.
She's another woman that's had a really, really challenging kind of year or so with multiple surgeries, run-related injuries, I think they were. So to see her back smiling, crossing the finish line and getting second on the podium, like that feels great. And then third was Nina Darren, who I did race last year. So amazing to see her out in New Zealand, 'cause she's another European athlete who made the trip over. So really cool. Fab podium.
Yeah, so well done to all those women. And like I say, the races start heating up now. We've had a few start lists come out, and yeah, they're really coming at us pretty thick and fast. And you've got, how long until your race? You've got a 2-week block now away in the sunshine, and then a week or 2 before your race? So 4 weeks?
So I fly out Friday, so this Friday the 7th. I fly back on the 23rd of March, and I'm then racing 2 weeks later, or 13 days later. And in the meantime, the weekend of the 23rd of March is Geelong. The weekend of the 30th of March is Ironman South Africa. The following weekend is 70.3 Oceanside, which is where I'm racing. There's also Challenge Sabanias in near Abu Dhabi in the Middle East. And then there is also T100 Singapore. Yeah, so it's all happening. And then, I mean, from that point on, it's basically every weekend or every other weekend there are races happening across the world, which is so exciting. And we've got some huge new players that are coming in, especially in the T100 side, with lots of short course athletes stepping up. But equally in the Ironman scene, there are lots of 70.3 athletes that are coming and doing their Ironman debuts. So I think this year is going to be exciting, fast, dynamic, and really painful for quite a lot of people, which is so fun because that's what we love.
Yeah, and we've hopefully got some interesting episodes to come with a lot of travel thrown in there. So I'll put in an exclusive, and she doesn't even know yet, but she'll listen, so she can hear it when it comes out. But we spoke today about your first Ironman. What I'd like to have a conversation is with Jana on how to win your age group.
Yeah,
how to be a world champion.
Jana has done something that I never have over the Ironman
distance. You've got the 70.3.
I
crown.
Do, but Jana's got
multiple
age group wins.
So how to consistently do it, and how do you even get your first one? So I think that's a really fun conversation that we can have when you're out in Texas without me for a bit. So I'm pre-warning Jana now. You've got a few weeks to prepare.
Hope you're listening. I know you're listening.
Yeah. And I'll bring you some biscuits to
to say thanks. Yeah, that would be fab. So
any questions on? Obviously, this is a few weeks away now, but I reckon we can get a good few questions in.
Yeah. What do you want to know from? Jana Ritrova, who is based out in America. She's from Czech Republic, and she has won. I don't want to quote the wrong number.
I want to say 6, or is it more?
She's won multiple times in Kona, and she won in Nice last year.
She can tell us.
She can tell us. But she didn't win on her first go. So her story to the top is absolutely fascinating. So she can tell that. But what do you want to know from someone that's won their age group in Kona and Nice?
Yeah. The hows, the whys. So, that's to come. But I think we can wrap up there. And
yeah, I need to finish these chocolate fingers and also have a whole bar of chocolate and then probably go to bed.
And thank you all for listening.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next week.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.